It's 7 a.m. in a retail park just outside Dundalk. Trucks, vans, tractors and cars gather en masse to drive into the town on what is now the third day of fuel protests across the country.
We don't want to be here. We don't want to be out on the road. We want to be pushing them lorries, delivering stuff, food to the table. We're not getting the chance. We can't do a fuel allowance. We can't keep putting all the money in. Our bills are getting high, but we're not getting any extra.
Majority of the time we keep our mouths shut, we say nothing, we get on with the job and we get it done. But it just seems to be the case now. Our roads here in Louth are covered and riddled in potholes. We're paying our road tax. Nothing's done about it. If we go to draw that to 8, we're left waiting for hours upon hours. So at the end of the day, and now this...
I'm a small business. I'm a year and a half going now. I'm only 27 years old. It's a hard enough industry to get into, small margins, and the way things are at the minute, it's undoable.
About the way the country's been run a while now and how we're like a crowd of puppets, basically. We're just doing what we're told and getting on. And I know everybody's happy and comfortable at the minute, but this is going to result in us not being so comfortable. So I think there needs to be a stand made, and I think Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael need to be put out of office. And I think people need to really wake up now.
As the convoy heads off for Dundalk town, dozens of similar groups are doing the same thing. This is not one big protest, but many small protests, hastily organised through Facebook and WhatsApp groups and bringing traffic to a standstill on roads throughout the country.
All 3 lanes are completely backed up.
Just 9 o'clock, we're at the entrance to the Whitegate oil refinery in East Cork, where a blockade has been maintained overnight.
It looks like there is a blockade. This is where the blockade begins.
It does look like the guards have pulled all the traffic back and stopped people getting into town.
It's 11 o'clock and we're arriving into Foynes. There are vans and trucks. They're lined up outside the fuel depot.
So this is Whitegate. It's the main oil refinery, the only oil refinery in the country here in East Cork. To about 30 vehicles, maybe about 70 protesters here, and they're not allowing any trucks get in or get out.
There are around 30 protesters here operating on shift duty while others are sleeping in trucks and tractors after spending the night here. They remain defiant about continuing their protest until their demands are met, regardless of the possible imminent arrival of the Army and Gardaí.
As protests across the country mobilise and move, in Dublin city centre, the protest is more static in nature. Most of these vehicles have been parked at O'Connell Street since arriving here on Tuesday. This afternoon, it showed no sign of ending, with protesters in for the long haul.
We're here since Tuesday. We drove up from Wicklow there Tuesday morning. Farming and forestry, and yeah, that's what we're into, yeah.
Can't hire an aggregate man.
It's gone up too high too quickly and we can't stay going the way it's going.
My own machinery itself is parked up since the end of the first week of March when the fuel started to go up. Customers are saying they can't afford to do it, they can't afford the increase, so no choice, only to park up.
I've been here since Tuesday morning. We got 3 cents a litre on green diesel. I'm burning a lot of green diesel, and we're employing the goods of 50 people, and it's all diesel, all machines we're using, plastic, everything is going up, and we have been just forgot about with the green diesel.
How long will you stay here?
As long as it takes.
A game of football on O'Connell Bridge, not something you see every day, but today is not a day like any other day. O'Connell Street is closed in both directions to traffic. There's trucks and tractors parked up all along the street, all along the quays. It's 12:30 at the moment. We can see there's still plenty of people in town, but businesses are saying that the protests are having an impact on trade.
The kind of numbers we're looking at are down -15%, -30%, that kind of range. So it is obviously having a very significant impact. I suppose a lot of businesses as well, and we've had discussions before about how we manage protests, because clearly there's a balance of rights to be drawn.
A frantic morning gave way to an afternoon and evening of extraordinary scenes as the consequences of the protests began to bite. Queues formed outside garage forecourts, panic buying setting in as news spread of pumps running dry, with Foynes, Whitegate and Galway remaining blockaded. On a gridlocked M50, passengers en route to Dublin Airport gave up on their vehicles and dragged their luggage along the hard shoulder. and the National Emergency Coordination Group has been convened on a day like few others in the history of protests in Ireland.
Conor Wilson there, and Conor now joins us from central Dublin. Conor, what's the latest?
Well, Miriam, I'm here above O'Connell Street, which is maybe the spiritual epicentre of these protests. This is where the spokespeople had based themselves today. It's a bit quieter, obviously, now at the moment, but the vehicles are all still parked up there. There's tractors, vans, trucks, coaches lined up along O'Connell Street, blocking both ends. At the moment, it looks like we're facing into a fourth day of this. There's no indication at the moment that anything has changed on that score, but these things can change very quickly. So if we look at what are the consequences of these protests heading into tomorrow, I spoke to Fuels for Ireland earlier on, to their CEO, who told me that they have 100 forecourts that have gone dry already today, mainly in Munster and across the west of Ireland, and that number could be 5 times that by this time tomorrow. So what's going to happen next as a response to that? We know the Garda Síochána told protesters today to leave the blockades that are outside fuel depots, or they would face the full rigours of the law. Now, Garda also reminded people today that they police through the 4 E's, which is engage, explain, encourage, and finally enforce. So what we've been told is tonight we're hearing that as we move into the next 24 hours, we could be moving into the enforcement side of those 4 E's.
Conor, thanks so much for joining us. Fran.
James Gagan, good evening. You describe yourself as one of the organisers of these protests. You've been very vocal on it. You've been calling, and others have been calling, for the government to sit down with you. Are there any indications at this point tonight that there's a likelihood of a meeting?
Yes, we have good news tonight. We have a breakthrough. I got a phone call tonight, so we have a meeting in Government Buildings tomorrow at 2 o'clock or 2:30, I think.
Who will you be meeting with?
There's other groups going in as well. All the organisations have been called in, so it's going to be a quite large group meeting with government.
When you say other groups?
Like the IFA and FCI and Road Haulage Association.
So if you're going to go to this meeting at 2 or half 2 tomorrow, will the protest be stood down in advance of that?
Already tonight, in the last 15 minutes, we have pulled in the protest off O'Connell Bridge, and we have released kerosene oil from the refineries. So the word has gone down to lift the blockades off kerosene in case, for people, in case it was people run out of heating oil or hospital run out of heating oil or whatever.
So will that wind down continue? In other words, in the morning when people wake up, is there likely to be further disruption?
There will be, definitely will be, because we have a list of demands going into the government tomorrow, a list of very reasonable demands, and it's a list of demands that we need to keep actually the country running, because the businesses that were going out of business is just frightening, and the government didn't listen and they didn't understand, and they were just so far away from reality. Like, we're all self-employed people that's on this protest. Most of us are self-employed, we run businesses. We can't take the hits that's been put on us.
Now, these demands, you had 4 demands that we'd heard of: a cap on white diesel, a cap on green diesel, the carbon tax to be either withdrawn or abolished, and the increase not to be put in place, and the NORA tax to be abolished as well. Have you demands beyond that?
We might have one demand beyond that, and we will be actually looking for the government to go back and look at the Ballyroe oil field to open it up, so we should produce our own oil. We have an ocean full of oil that we don't tap. I think it was Eamon Ryan that got locked down, but our country needs our own oil and our own security for oil, and it's there in the sea. Bring it in and use it.
Now, it's quite a shopping list. If you don't get those things tomorrow, or a promise or a commitment to do those things, what happens?
The reality is we actually can't afford to go home. It's as simple as that. My tax bill, my oil bill this year in my business, which is a quite small business, is up €70,000. I can't pay it, I can't afford to pay it. And the carbon tax is on agricultural diesel when we have no option. We can't avoid paying it. And in my business this year, my carbon tax bill of €21,000. And as I said today, I said about Micheál Martin, let Micheál Martin write a cheque for €21,000 and see how he feels about it, because he's forcing me to pay it. Why should I pay it?
All right, James, stay with us. Miriam has Minister of State Timmy Dooley with her. Miriam.
Thanks, Minister. Breaking news, is that true? There's a meeting in Government Buildings tomorrow, as James said.
Yeah, there's a meeting in Government Buildings tomorrow where Minister Hayden and I will meet with the representative bodies that we have been engaging with in recent days and weeks, who met with the Minister Hayden and the Taoiseach last week.
Does that include the protesters?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, we're meeting with the representative bodies. Now, I don't know who they're bringing. They have been asked to bring a number of representatives. That'll be a matter for themselves. But we
Actually,
all
no,
share
let
the
me
same
clarify
design.
that, because I think that's important, Minister. James Geoghegan has just said to Fran there that they are part of a delegation that is going in tomorrow to government buildings to meet government representatives. Now, he seems to be thinking that includes the protesters. Are you saying tonight it doesn't include the protesters?
My very clear understanding is invitations have been issued to representative bodies who have an opportunity to bring a delegation to the
so
meeting.
They may be bringing protesters with them?
I'm not aware of that. That will be a matter for them. But my understanding is that, my knowledge is that we have issued invitations to the representative bodies to continue the dialogue that started last week between Minister Hayden and the Taoiseach. There were proposals put forward at that, and that did include the IFA, the ICMSA. It included contractors, groupings and associations. And my clear information is that it will be those groups who have been invited and will be in attendance tomorrow.
This now seems, unless I'm wrong, very muddled. We've James Geoghegan saying quite clearly that he feels the protesters, Minister, are part of the invited delegation tomorrow. You're saying, as one of the ministers meeting these delegations, that's not your understanding.
I've made it very clear. My understanding is that invitations have been issued to the representative bodies who we have been in ongoing dialogue with, who have made some proposals which may be similar to or include some of the proposals that have been identified by James and others. My very clear information is that those that have been invited are those that we're already engaged with, who are the representative bodies. Who
Just
they
me
choose to
clarify
bring with them is a matter for those representative bodies.
I'm trying to read between the lines here. So is James Geoghegan wrong when he believes that he was optimistic it seemed a breakthrough? Is he wrong when he says that he feels protesters like himself are invited as part of the delegation tomorrow?
I have no knowledge of the information that James Geoghegan has. I can only tell you the government's position, which is that we're tomorrow meeting with representative groupings that have been invited. Who they choose to bring with them, whether they're within their membership or not, is a matter obviously for those representative bodies. So I don't know, or I'm not aware, or have not been put in a position by any of the representative bodies who are part of those delegations.
But we know what's key. We've been listening, and obviously it's growing tonight. You can see that in various parts of the country. These protests are growing. Their key was they wanted to be spoken to, and not just the representative bodies. So this is actually a key moment. For people watching tonight, even some of the protesters, they want to know, are they going to be spoken to tomorrow? Are they going to be listened to? Will any of their demands be met?
But you have to understand that the government have been engaging with representative bodies who share the same concerns that James Geoghegan and every other protester does. Everybody is concerned about the impact on their lives and livelihoods, about the cost of oil. Now, I also want to make this point, and I fully understand. I know many of the people on the protests. I've spoken with them. I know their issues, I know their concerns. But there's a big difference between a protest and a blockade, and we have to get to a point where the blockade of access to clean water, to fuel, to allow people to get to hospital points. But
everybody needs to de-escalate this.
Correct.
But bringing in the army, that seemed a crazy idea. I mean, that does nothing to de-escalate the situation.
I think it has been made very clear by government that that's a position of last resort. The government has made it very clear that we accept and understand in any democratic society the right of every citizen, regardless of how difficult a situation is, to protest, to involve themselves in peaceful protest. There's a big difference between a peaceful protest and a blockade. We have a situation where people can't get access to fuel. I mean, the crisis is in the Middle East, and yet it's some people here that are actually preventing people getting access to fuel, to go about their daily lives, to work, to get people to hospital.
Let's look ahead to tomorrow. Are you inclined as a government to give in to some of their key demands, like a cap on fuel? One of your backbenchers, Sean Fleming, was saying today you should do that.
So let's look at what a fuel...
No, are you inclined to give in to any of their demands?
Let's put in context what a fuel cap is. So you put a cap, you decide that's the maximum that we're going to allow companies to charge. Then the state has to provide the gap between what the cap is and what the oil companies charge.
But you're making a fortune from the extra VAT on the fuel increases right now, and from carbon tax.
With the minimum intervention that we did last week is costing $250 million a month. So if you're to cap, as has been suggested by some on the protest, at 170 for road diesel, for agricultural diesel at 90 cents, then you're looking at $1 billion a month. Nobody is suggesting where that money is going to come from. But you're making a lot
of money on VAT. You're making a lot of money on extra taxes on the fuel increases. Give it back to the people is what they're saying.
And that's a lovely simplistic argument that doesn't bear out. I'm suggesting to you that the cost of doing what's suggested by putting a fuel cap will cost the taxpayer $1 billion. Now, there is some small amounts of money in reserves, but there certainly isn't $1 billion a month. And we have to be conscious. I mean, no politician wants to be at loggerheads with people who are struggling. But the reality is we cannot put the finances of the state into a perilous situation where we're spending $1 billion. Because what will happen is happen. But I just need to make this point. When we gave, rightly so, $250 million just 2 weeks ago...
Sounds to me, though, Minister, like you're not going to give in to any of the demands tomorrow.
We
so
have
these
to work with
talks
everybody.
will fail.
But also look what happened. The oil companies sucked up that additional monies and we're back to the same price as was 2 weeks ago. So if we commit another $1 billion of hard-earned taxpayers' money and the oil companies just put the price up there
so
again,
it sounds like
nothing
these
is achieved.
talks, before I head back to France, will not work tomorrow because it looks like none of these demands are going to be accepted.
Yes, there are things that can be done and we do want to work with the representative bodies who have been engaged proactively with us with full understanding of all the complexities to it.
Thank you very much for coming in. Fran.
James, if that tune that you've heard there from Timmy Dooley doesn't change in that meeting tomorrow, what can the public expect?
Well, it's very clear that Minister Dooley is away with the fairies the same as a lot of the rest of the government and are not listening to the people. He's saying it's going to cost $1 billion. The building boom is crashing. We're not digging out foundation for houses anymore. Houses are going to stop being built and the government are going to lose absolute billions by not dropping the price of fuel.
What I want to focus in on, for people at home, right, who are struggling to get to hospital appointments, who are worried about getting fuel. If that tune doesn't change tomorrow afternoon at that meeting, what can they expect from your protesters?
The protest is staying in place till the price of fuel comes down. If it doesn't come down, the country's going to crash anyway. So until it comes down, we're not going home till it's sorted. And I've had meetings this evening with a lot of people from around the country.
And what happens, James, if the price of fuel doesn't come down by government remedy? If the crisis in the Middle East continues?
The government are getting plenty out of the price of fuel. The price of fuel in Spain tonight is €1.70 maximum for white diesel. Why isn't it the same here? I got a lift in a taxi last night from a man from India, and in India today, white diesel for cars is 95 cents a litre.
Look, you're dealing with a different situation.
No, the oil is in a world market. It's the same price all over the world. If it can be one price in India at 95, it could be the same here. We're not asking for 95. Okay. We're asking for 170, which is a reasonable price.
I just want to ask you briefly. Conor mentioned in his live report there, the National Emergency Coordination Group had convened today. Yeah. They said today that the HSE had briefed them that disruption is being caused to people missing medical appointments, impacting the provision of dialysis and cancer treatment to some service users. Is that not an indication that you are not in control of the protesters if people can't get to hospital?
Look, there is going to always be some people missing appointments. There is traffic blocked. Look, at an normal morning of the week, the M50
people
can
going
crash.
To cancer treatment?
Yeah, if they're on the morning of a crash, they're going to miss it as well.
But you're causing this crash, you and your protesters, and people, according to the HSE, are missing cancer appointments.
In fairness, I know definitely today that anyone going to an appointment was given priority to get through and nobody was delayed.
What mandate do you have to do this, people might wonder?
The people of the country have asked us to do this.
And if you tell the people of the country to stand down, will they?
They will stand down.
Are you confident of that?
100%. But they won't stand down till we get enough of the demands that are required to save our businesses. We're not going to have a business plan.
You say that, yet you have senior figures from the movement that you're referring to talking today about some people going rogue. It is clear. We've seen clashes, we've seen fisticuffs, we've seen people climb up on top of cars. It is clear that controlling some of these people is a problem for you.
It could be a slight problem, but in fairness, 99.99% or 100%, most people are self-employed people that are on the protest trying to save their business and their futures.
I'm just wondering about that, the people of the country, OK? Yeah. Representative groups have elected councils, elected bodies, TDs are elected, councillors are elected. Who's elected you and the people who are leading
I was asked to be the PRO for this group who formed over the last few weeks. There was a meeting in Portlaoise which started this a few weeks ago. There was a committee elected that night. And I was
How many people are at the meeting?
350.
350 people are causing this level of disruption to the country?
It mushroomed due to frustration and from the government just ignoring everybody.
Can I ask you about that? The reference was made earlier to the army coming on the streets. Yeah. Has that inflamed people? Because we're seeing from the reports on the 9 o'clock news tonight that numbers are growing at some of these protests.
Well, my answer to the army coming on the streets is we have actually a bigger army. So we're not afraid of the army. we're agri-contractors, plant hire men. The Army will not move this protest, and if any vehicle is touched on that protest, there'll be 10 more to replace it immediately. And that's how strong the people on the ground are on this, and it's unbelievable. I can't believe.
So what's your advice to protesters if the Army try to move them?
I can't see it possible, because the machines that are parked up cannot physically be removed.
All right, James Keegan, thanks for coming into us this evening.